Hi, Heather.
Hi, Krista.
Last time we chatted, I made the mistake of dropping the idea that we would talk more about suffering. So this conversation is my own fault, and I acknowledge that.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. In the same breath, I mean, it sort of relates to some of what we were talking about in our whale song program that we had a call today for that. We were talking about contentment, and contentment and suffering are like very intertwined on a lot of levels. Um, and and yeah, it was, I think a lot of people came away from that conversation going, oh man, contentment is a lot more complicated than I first assumed. Um, Not in a bad way, just in a, oh yeah, right. Like it's tied up in a lot of complexity. Like contentment isn't just suddenly nothing bothers me and everything is fine and the world is perfect. Like that's not really what contentment is.
Yeah.
Um, and some of this we've sort of woven around this conversation a few times. I think even in one of our last videos, you talked about the list you wrote about all the things that you did after your divorce and how someone came back and was like, oh, but are you happy? And you were like, happy.
Have you found happiness? Was the specific
Right,
question. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I'm actually writing
As
a
though
post
that
about
were,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
as though that were sort of the end point, the whole
Yeah.
reason one would upend one's whole life, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so riff
Yeah.
for me a little bit about some of the stuff that's brewing in your brain about contentment and suffering and
Yeah.
how they, yeah,
I'm trying to find a clear through line because it
I
feels
know,
the more it's the kind of thing that the more you start to unpack, the more complicated it gets. And so it's not
yeah.
like we have one easy thing to say about it. But I do, and I think maybe that's where I'll start is that we have this tendency, maybe it's human nature, to try to simplify it into one
Mm,
thing. And so we seek for a state of happiness. And there really
right.
is no state, and the question was, have you found happiness? And it really sent me on this kind of really interesting personal reflections. Like, so is happiness something I'm supposed to find? And is that my life's work is the pursuit of happiness? And that would suggest that I'm trying to move away from suffering to happiness. Like, is it a journey that you're going from point A to point B? And
Right.
that's the binary of, I'm leaving suffering because that was specifically about ending an unhealthy marriage. And so then am
Mhm.
I moving toward happiness? Well, no, life is far more complicated than that. I may have happy moments, but I'm not moving to a state of something. Just like
Right.
suffering is not a permanent state. We move in and out. And even, what is it they say? No emotion lasts more than, I don't know, 30
90
seconds. I don't know.
seconds or
I don't
something.
know what
Yeah.
it is, but
Yeah.
we are so rarely in any state for any real long period of time. We
Yeah.
are fluctuating through it, especially if you're someone who has a busy brain like you and I both have. Like we tend to move fairly quickly through various states. But it even so as I'm unpacking this idea and thinking about, our is that the pursuit of our lives? Is that what we're trying to find? Is we're trying to it's so can't be because I live in an aging body and realize that the more, and I'm not that old, I'm 60, but my body is gradually deteriorating in certain ways that add more struggle to my life, that add more. I'm having vision. I have a disability now, and I have certain things that are ongoing struggles that probably will be for the rest of my life. So life is not designed in a way that allows us to like move towards a state of happiness and plant a flag there.
Yeah.
And and if it were, then we would be missing out on a lot of the what life really is because
Mm,
if I'm trying to avoid the struggle, it's a form of bypassing, really. And we
yeah.
talk a lot about that in our holding space work. It's like, when is it a genuine spiritual practice or a genuine, like, we're trying to find contentment and be in a state of contentment? But when is that an avoidance of the feelings that we really need to feel? And if, for example, I'm trying to stay out of this struggle and trying to be in happiness, well, if you lose a member of your family and you go deep into grief, and I come to your funeral and I'm trying to stay happy, well, that is not a way to build a relationship because I
No?
want to be able to be with you in your grief. So I want to
Yeah.
always stay open to feeling all of the emotions and going through the journey of every human emotion. And I also want to be able to feel, if I don't feel some of the despair over what we're doing to the planet, over what we're doing to marginalized people, over what we're doing in Gaza, or, if I don't
Yeah.
feel some of that despair because I'm trying to avoid suffering, then I won't engage in the world either. And so, as much as, and this really came up in our conversation, we want to we want to find contentment, but we don't want it to be a stuck place or a bypassing or an avoidance or a complacency or, yeah, ignoring the world so that we can stay contented. And I think that's the work that you and I are really doing in our holding space work is like, how can we stay present in the world
Mhm.
that gives us the capacity to hold it all? And without getting lost in any of it and without trying to bypass or ignore.
And
So,
beyond that, how do we hold it together? Like not like hold it together. Which is my own Freudian slip late maybe because that's kind of how I've been feeling lately. But like hold it together, like within
yeah,
community and
collectively.
with all of
Yeah,
us because I think that was the other thing that struck me about our conversation in Whale Song was this idea that contentment relies in a large part on community. Like happiness is an individual experience that I can have at any point in time based on my circumstance, right? But contentment, I think, is found when we are working together with other people, when we are settled in maturing communities, and that's the thing we've talked about before.
yeah,
Where we can hold each other accountable and lift each other up and move each other forward as well. I think that contentment lives more in those places than in any passing emotion that I might
exactly.
have. And I
Yeah,
was saying earlier to you too about the whole happiness question. I'm like, if everything is acceptable because it makes an individual happy, then we can't complain about, AI data centers because well, you know, they make
somebody is
Bezos
happy.
or Zuckerberg happy, right? So and they should be able to pursue their happiness. But it's destructive to other people. Like
Yeah,
my happiness might actually harm somebody else.
exactly. Exactly.
And so it
Yeah.
has to be taken in context, right?
hmm Yeah, and sometimes I'm going to forego my happiness so that you
Yeah,
have access to something you need. Like if
exactly.
if I were to stumble up on something that makes me $1 million, but it's very extractive and it's going to like harm a lot of people and the planet and but
Yeah.
hey, I'm choosing it because it will make me happy. That's it's immoral and it's not, and you and I keep going back to this kinship way of being
Yes.
that really was inspired by Robin Wall Kimmerer and other indigenous thinkers
Yeah.
like her that are teaching us to return to being in that collective of being.
Mhm.
And I so the path that I walk almost every day, there's a particular spot, same spot every day. There are ants going back forth across the path, right in this very spot. And almost
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day I stop to watch them because I find it quite
Yeah.
fascinating that every day all these ants are doing is just going back and forth across the path. Now, if you asked any of those ants if they're happy, I mean, A, they would probably not understand what happiness is, but their contentment is found in fulfilling their purpose as an ant.
Mhm.
And I learned recently that ants don't have really individual minds. So their mind is a collective mind. And not that they don't have them, but that they think as a
Yes.
collective. So
Yeah.
everything is in search of the good of the collective. And
Right.
so if the collective needs to go back and forth, and I can't see that they're carrying anything, I'm not quite sure. I keep watching them and I get down on the ground because I'm like, what are they, what's
Ooh.
the movement here? Because
Yeah.
there's nothing obvious that they're carrying. But whatever it is, they know that in order for the survival of their little ant hive or whatever you call it,
Yeah.
that is required, this daily movement back and forth across the path. And I think we've lost some of that as a human race, that we are too individualized. And I'm not saying that we should just become collectivists like ants, like and lose our individual
Right.
minds, because then we lose our creativity and stuff too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. But we need the balance somewhere where we are committed to the collective good in a way that sometimes requires us to make the sacrifice and enter the struggle.
Hmm.
And also, we still have the capacity to hold our individual well-being and happiness to some degree, or contentment.
Yeah.
But balancing those, I think, is what's critical for us and the kind of work that you and I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it requires both a level of introspection and self-reflection and also systems thinking, which are sort of the
Yeah.
two pillars that undergird our work, right? Like
Hmm.
we have the self-reflection so that we are aware of how we as individuals exist within our little bubbles,
Yeah.
but we also have the systemic awareness of how those systems are impacting our relationships and our ability to do and change things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's been really fascinating and gratifying for me anyway to sort of witness other people come along that journey with us and realize that it is possible to do both.
Yeah.
Not always well all the time and not without hiccups or complexity or any
Yeah,
of
for
that,
sure.
but that
Yeah.
the binaries don't have to limit us in the way we've been told that they have to
Yeah.
limit us.
Yeah. Yeah, there is so much we still have to unpack. And this is where you and I have also talked a lot about deconstruction and
Yeah.
deconstructing some of the belief systems, because we have adopted certain belief systems that are too binary in thinking, and also are too self-centered and too individualistic. And so we've been raised in these cultures to pursue that as our value system, and
Yeah.
like be self-sufficient, and and look after our own good. And even we've talked before about how many self-help books there are and how
Yeah.
few collective help books there are,
Right.
because we have centered that need to do personal growth work and do personal healing,
Mm-hmm.
and look after ourselves and set boundaries and all those things. And they fall short if we're not holding it together with the collective good.
Right.
And also the complexity, again, going back to that complexity piece of, we are in messy relationships and we are holding messy stuff within those relationships. We cannot, the minute we try to oversimplify and become reductionist in our thinking,
Yeah.
we we lose our relationships. And we see that with people sometimes when they talk about boundaries. It's very clear. It's like, well,
Right.
if you do something toxic, I cut you out of my life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
very reductionist way of treating a relationship. It's not
Mm-hmm.
transactional. You're going to mess up, I'm going to mess up. We are navigating this as a complex um, relationship that requires occasional repair, that requires us to admit we've screwed up, that is not as, we can't have those. Yeah, it doesn't serve us well if we are
No.
seeking to live in that binary version of the world where it's like, I'm moving away from struggle, I'm moving toward happiness. And that means that I'm going to isolate everybody in my life because you create struggle in my life. So
That's right. Or it pushes us further and further towards the sycophantic AI that just tells us what we want to hear all the time, right? And I just watched something that apparently there are governments who are, asking AI, how do we stop this particular war? And the AI keeps coming back with, well, you should nuke them. And it's like, okay, as a human, I would be like, maybe not. Like maybe that's not a good
Yeah.
idea. Like, and but you're not getting that human friction of like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
extreme. You're
Yeah.
just going, well, that's what I was thinking. I'm frustrated with it. And so we're just gonna like push the button and be done with it, right? Not thinking beyond what the cost of that would be
Yeah.
on a global scale.
Mhm. And cost to our humanity. Like that's the
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think we fail to weigh the cost of what our choices, and there's a lot of choices right now that we're making as a society that are not really in the best interests of our humanity, of
Yeah.
being truly human. And AI is a lot of that right now. We're choosing to invest in machine check technology, high end, like large language systems,
Yeah.
etc. That is very clearly going to be harmful to a lot of people. A lot of people probably losing jobs, already
Yep.
losing jobs, and so how do we bring that back into our consciousness if we have gone so far down this road that
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's one of the big questions that we're facing as a human race right now. It's like,
Yeah.
how do we
Totally.
dial that back so that we don't lose our humanity in the midst of this? And what are we sacrificing? What is the cost? Like,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, our Holding Space Foundation program, this is the time of year when we have to flog it more. Our favorite thing to do, marketing our programs. But in the same breath, like, I can't stop thinking about how many tools are in that toolkit that can help folks have those conversations, become more comfortable with complexity, learn how to hold space for themselves without steamrolling and exploding their whole lives.
yeah,
Um, like it's got such a variety of tools for all of those soft skills that we need so much in the face of the other, we often talk about the natural world as being more than human. And in this case, I'll refer to AI as other than human.
yeah,
Like we have to find ways to maintain our humanity and practice those human skills with each other.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's really, I think, what the Holding Space Foundation program offers, an opportunity to practice that stuff in a well-held environment where, you can
yeah,
mess up and have those hard conversations and have the aha moments and the self-reflection and also learn about the system stuff. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
as much as we hate marketing it, I think that it's still such a good thing that I wish more people knew about and had access to. Um, yeah,
I know, and
anyway.
it feels so disheartening to watch us go down a certain path,
Yeah.
knowing that we're losing certain skills and
Yeah.
losing certain capacities and lose and sacrificing our humanity, sacrificing our capacity for being in relationship. And yeah, you and I just feel really passionate about how do we maintain that? How do we give people those skills? How do we give them very real, meaningful like toolkits for staying in relationships or staying in the complexity, staying
Yeah.
with the struggle, staying with the grief,
Yeah.
staying in because we are going to face more and more of that complexity. The more we
Yeah.
lose, the more we um, AI takes over more and more of our work functions, the more we lose things to climate change. It's causing immeasurable amounts of grief and anxiety. And
Yeah.
so we need and I've shared this story many times that I'll never forget listening to a speaker, and she looked around the room and she says, the world needs more people who know how to navigate in the dark. And I
Mm.
think we're trying to give people skills for navigating a certain kind of liminality like we've never experienced before. And if we don't get, yeah, I don't want to go down that path, but I think it's crucial
Yeah.
that we do show up and do this work together and find our community and find other people and link arms and move through that. Francis Weller refers to it as the long dark, that we are entering the long dark.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
we need each other.
We do. We do. And, we're not the only tool out there. We're not the only organization out there trying to do that. But, we have we've got a good track record of 6 years of working with folks
Yeah,
to build these skills. So, if you are interested in practicing being human,
yeah, yeah.
come check us out.
Stay
Center
human
Ramon,
in a
stay here. And
dehumanizing world.
that's right. Yeah, that's a good tagline. We should meme that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get AI to make that a meme.
Oh, the irony of
Oh, I
that.
know, hey.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is us being human and messy and inviting you to join us in that.
Yeah,
Um,
stay with us.
Stay with us. Until next time, I'm Krista. This is Heather. I'm assuming you know that because our names are going to be on the screen, but
If
still.
they've made it this far, I'm sure they know that, but
Join us next time for another rambly talk of our coffee break series. See you next time, Heather.
yeah, see ya.